Hello and welcome to a quick, I hope, overview of the hints and logic in Scrub Season 2. This is going to be a general introduction to how to read your hints, how to approach logic in DK64 Randomizer, and most importantly, a specific look at how to do that in Scrub Season 2 with the end goal of helping you, yes, you listening right now, understand and apply it to your upcoming races. My name is Verdon Ash. I'm one of the dev team people for Scrub Season 2. Please apologize my sick voice. I'm currently getting over a cold. But this video is intended for beginners, but I think anyone can probably find some value in it. So without further ado, we are going to go right into our video. Let's start off very cleanly with what is logic. It seems a really silly thing to talk about, but when you think of logic in DK64 Randomizer, I want you to think of if-then statements. All of our logic is built on that kind of logic tree. If I want to access a specific check, then I need these moves. If this move is hinted towards this key, then any move I find with that move is also being hinted towards that key until I find that key. What you can see on screen right here is a little image I have drawn up. This is an example image of logical accesses for O-Stand in Scrub Season 2. And you can see O-Stand in the middle, and then all the different moves it combines with, and what checks as a result it has extra access to. So, factory lanky metal requires nothing but O-Stand to obtain, so you would only see that on that path. Level slam here, if you want to do the production pipe in that same factory area where those bananas are, you would need to slam that switch. And so, again, when you think of it, it's like, in order to do factory lanky production pipe, you have to have O-Stand and level slam. So if, then, right? That's how the logic of this game works. Pick any check in the game, just one from up here, for example, Aztec, Lanky, Llama, Temple Barrel down the bottom there. You need Trombone and O-Stand, and then also you need Baboon Blast and one other gun to be able to get there. So if you have all that, then you have logical access to that check. This is a very important thing to follow up with. Logic and hints are not one-to-one overlaps. They are very close, but they are not precisely one-to-one overlapped. DK64 Randomizer has a very unique and special hint system that makes a few assumptions about what you can do at any time. A full list of these assumptions can be found at our All About Hints page. I'm going to direct you to that at the end of this video. But some of the most key ones to be understood here are: it assumes that you have access to Kongs and keys at all times when referring to path hints. It assumes that any item that can mutually access a check, so let's say, for example, if you want to get into Llama Temple, you see right down there in the bottom left-hand corner where it says in brackets there, feather, grape, and coconut. Those are all mutually exclusive items to each other. You only need one gun to get into that temple. And if one of them doesn't lock both of the other ones, none of them will be considered as hinted towards access to a check in there. Tag Anywhere. One of our best and coolest quality of life features, the ability to switch between different Kongs with a press of the button without having to go to your tag barrels, is not considered logically. If you have no direct access to a tag barrel without having to go through another loading zone, only the Kong that can enter the region logically is considered to have access to that region logic. So, in Aztec, we have the Tiny Temple with 4 gun switches around the outside. Any one gun will allow you to enter that temple, but because there is no tag barrel inside the temple, whichever gun is used to enter is the logical Kong who's allowed to go inside. So, Tiny's mini check inside there still requires feather logically, even though you can just use Pineapple to go in and then Mini Monkey and Tiny to be able to do the check because of Tag Anywhere. The logic there doesn't exactly work out. And finally, a very important one, entry to levels that are not Helm is not considered as part of logic either. So, diving's entry to level 4's lobby is not make all of what's behind level 4 diving locked. You won't see diving is on the path to everything in that level. But Monkeyport's pad up to level 8, because it is Helm, always in these settings, does in fact consider access to Helm as everything behind Monkeyport. There are some other pitfalls and traps we will talk about in more detail as we explore the hint system further. But this is just a disclaimer that you should be aware of going forward. So, hints. Here's a lovely little picture of all different kinds of hints that you will see in DK64 Randomizer. How do our hints work? Give you a second to look at all that up there. We have every single kind of hint that you can find there, including the places in which you will see them, at our doors, on our hint screen. Let's start at the very top with Way of the Horde. Any item, key, or Kong needed to complete a seed is considered a Way of the Horde collectible. Any check that is needed to be done to access those items is considered a Way of the Horde check. When we roll a seed, an entire playthrough of the seed is generated by the logic, by our if-then logics, that shows every item you will absolutely 100% always need to complete a seed. Some of those items will be hinted Way of the Horde by way of hinting directly the check that item resides on. So, if we go back here for a second, Forest Lanky Rabbit Race is on the Way of the Horde. That means that the Rabbit Race, which is not a check in Season 2 of Scrubs, but Lanky's Rabbit Race contains an item you will always need to obtain in order to beat the game. Oh, a special note here. When we talked about assumptions and hinting paths earlier, a Way of the Horde only cares about whether or not the item is needed to complete the seed, assumptions aside. So, for example, when we talked about diving to enter level 4, no item in level 4 is going to be considered as part of the logical if-then path that diving locks. But on the playthrough of the seed, you will always have to get diving no matter what in order to even get to that level. So if there's anything you need to do in level 4 at all, you will need to have diving first. So it is possible in a seed where no items are path locked by diving, nothing else is even remotely underwater, diving would have 0 paths. It would be completely pathless. And yet, it could still be a required to obtain item and could receive a Way of the Horde hint. So that is a big difference where Way of the Horde and paths differ. Paths require the logical assumptions to be in line to create a mutually exclusive required path. And we'll talk about what that means in a second. But Way of the Horde just means, in its most basic, whatever item you find on this check is 100% required to complete the seed, period. That's it. So anytime you see Way of the Horde hint, do that check. Remember that item's important. Use that item. Paths are very complicated. They contain a lot of information we can use. And so we're going to break this down into 3 different subjects on paths. We're going to take a path hint and break it down into its opening and its closing, and then what it means overall. Its opening are path regions. If you look in the bottom left-hand corner there, the thing colored gray that says castle colored bananas, that is our path region. If you look in the bottom right, Forest Center and Beanstalk is another region. Every level in DK64 is split into several of these regions that contain all the possible checks in the game. When a path hint is created, it looks at the playthrough of our game. It says, okay, what items are required? And then it checks if an item that it's pulling has any paths to one of our possible end points. Notably, we'll talk about what endpoints mean here in a second. But disregarding that for just a moment, once it does that and it has at least one path endpoint, and notably, when you talk about keys are both endpoints and something on the path to their own endpoint. So if you could see something that says, if I go back here a couple, Cave's Helm Lobby is on the path to key 3. Key 3 could be the item you find in Cave Helm Lobbies that is just on the path to key 3. It will write out that region, it will write out that hint and say, okay, I can't give you the direct check that I'm referring to. Instead, I will give you a region that check is contained within, and it is up to you to find it in that region. All levels contain a region that is called Color Bananas. It refers to all 5 Kong metal checks and the boss portal. All other regions within a level are split apart with checks within them. As part of our Season 2 Scrubs package, you will be able to find a spreadsheet that contains every possible check organized by region. But if you are still confused about what region you are in at any time, you can hit the pause button and look at the bottom of your opening menu, and it will tell you what region you are in. And anytime a check spawns, if you're picking it up or being given it, whatever region you are in, that is the region that check is in. So that's just how path regions work. It is telling you a section of the game to be searching, but not a specific check to be searching. The other half of our path hints are endpoints. There are 3 kinds of endpoints for path hints: keys, K-Rool fights, and Kongs. In order to beat this, our Season 2 of Scrub Seeds, you need all 8 keys, all the moves required to defeat the 2 K-Rool fights you will face, and all the Kongs required to achieve these goals. As such, our path hints in the game will hint you directly towards these end goals. And any item on a path that points towards one or more of these things is strictly required to achieve whatever goal it's pointing at. Talking a little bit more about what that means, strictly required. When we talked earlier about multiple ways to access Llama Temple, there are lots of checks in the game with something that we like to call an either or. A fantastic example of this is in Castle. We have a shed right up by the greenhouse outside on the surroundings of Castle called Castle Chunky Shed. You punch your way in with Chunky, so punch is always required to complete this check. But all you need to do to beat this check is kill all the enemies in the room. Traditionally, in the original game, it was intended that you punch the other box in the middle to reveal a Gorilla Gon pad, which unveils the invisible enemies in the room, and you shoot them with your pineapple launcher. That is one way to do this check. However, unlike some other regions in the game where you are unable to use your instrument, this is not one of them. So, you can play any instrument and kill all of the enemies in this room. But remember, I'm going to head back here for a second. When we talked about accessing, here it is, accessing a specific area of a level, if there's no tag barrel inside, the tag anywhere assumptions. So when you punch your way in with Chunky, there's no tag barrel in there. So you can't actually use saxophone, even though you can tag anywhere to use saxophone. Saxophone's not logically available to be able to do that check. So instead, you have to use triangle logically. That means that check has 2 possible methods of completion: punch and triangle, or punch and Gorilla Gon and pineapple launcher. If triangle and pineapple and Gorilla Gon do not lock each other in any way, and they're all mutually accessible at the same time. So, for example, if this was key 5 in the shed, and you got it by punching in and playing your triangle, you get key 5. And then in level 6, which key 5 locks, you find pineapple launcher. That would still be considered as accessible because of the assumptions about keys. So you go back here and you say, hey, access to keys at all times, access to level access. That's not being blocked. Triangle is not directly blocking that access. So as a result, it's not a overlap, and you get what is created is called a either or situation. That one is actually called a fake either or, where you actually do 100% need triangle, and it is Way of the Horde, but it won't be path hinted to that key 5 path and that shed. So when we say strictly required to achieve a goal, it means in that if-then scenario, there is no other way remotely possible with all the assumptions made in the game that you can get that check. So punch to key 5 will always be true because it is strictly required for punch to access that shed. But triangle might not. The biggest thing to remember again is that that if-then is really helpful. If grape, for example, is hinted to key 5, something related to or behind grape must lead to key 5. So if you check your Aztec 5-door lanky grape temple and you find coconut in there, then coconut is also to key 5. Until you find key 5 somewhere. Maybe it's behind another coconut check. Maybe it's behind another grape check. It could be behind the grape cage on Isles. Once you find that key, you're good. But until you find the actual endpoint thing that an endpoint is referring to, it is still an unresolved path and it will 100% have an answer somewhere in the seed because it is strictly required. Talking about end goals, all of the keys that you see on end goal, their end result is the key itself, right? So key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, their end result is just those keys. Key 8 is a little different. In order to complete key 8, you have to have Monkey Port, Gorilla Gone, and Vines to be able to get up into Helm. You also need to have key 6 and key 7 to open the mouth, but just like we talked about earlier, keys are assumed to be had, so level access to Helm does not consider those 2 keys as on the path to entering there. Key is always at the back of Helm, so you will always need 2 of the 5 Helm rooms completed. So when we see key 8 here, as part of back of Helm, these are the 5 possible ways of getting there. And so if you see something is on the path to just key 8, and you know that Donkey is required to be able to get to back of Helm, Bongos will always be on the path to key 8. If it says Donkey Chunky, it's Bongos and Triangle. If it says Donkey Diddy, it's Bongos Guitar and Rocket Barrel Boost. So that's how you can read into key 8. For K Rule, your end goal move paths are Baboon Blast for Donkey's fight, Rocket Barrel Boost and Peanuts for Diddy's fight, Lanky has Barrel Throwing and Trombone, Tiny has Mini Monkey and Feather Bow, and Chunky has 3 moves, Parent Punch, Gorilla Gone, and Hunky Chunky. So, if you get an item that says, I'm on the path to Key 3 and Diddy phase, and you get Peanuts as that hinted item, you know that for the Diddy phase part, it is answered and resolved, but it is still looking for something to do with Key 3. So you can expect that Key 3 will be somewhere locked behind Peanuts in some manner. Note, and this is a very important note, for things that have multiple pieces to be answered, like key 8 always requires at least 2 instrument moves. Chunky's K-Roll fight requires 3 chunky moves. Just because one move successfully answers a piece of it does not mean that that move is never used again to find the other pieces for that same end goal. Here's an example. Let's say that you kill a Kasplat in a region that is hinted to Chunky Phase and just Chunky Phase, and it gives you Primate Punch. Now you know 100% Primate Punch is required for Chunky Phase, so that hint is just resolved. You don't need to look at that as an unresolved hint anymore. But later on, you get a hint that says Galleon Caverns is on the path to Chunky Phase as well. That could mean that the punch chests in the caverns, the ones where you go in and you punch the chest open with Chunky, could contain Hunky Chunky. Because, or Gorilla Golem, for that matter. Because while it is an answered path, it doesn't preclude it to being exactly only for one part of the move. It just says it's required to achieve this goal. It could lock all 3 moves, or it could lock just one and be separate paths. But you're not able to differentiate that, so it doesn't prevent you from looking for it. If it's on the path to Chunky Phase, it's always on the path to Chunky Phase if you're looking for chunky moves. But unanswered paths and resolved paths are different in the fact that an unanswered path must still have an answer, and a resolved path is at least answered and satisfied, but it could still have more answers behind it. That's our difference. Which brings us to negative information. Thinking about that same concept of how a thing for Chunky Phase is always on the path to Chunky Phase, let's talk about if something is not on the path to something. So, if you look at that 5-door temple hint right there, it says 3 different K-Roll phases. In our season, it only has 2 phases. But these are taken from the same game. So the Castle Color Bananas one and the 5-Door Temple one are taken from the same game. So those 2 hints are saying very different things. If you found Coconut Gun on Castle Color Bananas, you could be 100% sure that Tiny Phase, which you know is required, is not remotely attached or behind Coconut Gun in any way. So if you get into a position in the game where you're looking for Feather Bow, which you now know is one of the 2 things required for Tiny Phase, you know that you can skip all the checks that Coconut Gun locks and the checks of any other move that Coconut Gun helped you get. So Coconut Gun, it looks like, is going to help you get Baboon Blast here for DK Phase. DK Phase, that move won't have it at all. If it helps you get Primate Punch for Chunky Phase, that move will also not have Tiny Phase stuff in it. So that's a way to read that. Negative information is strictly defined by the fact that any path hint has those specific requirements we talked about. And so if it doesn't say those specific end goals, it must not be specifically required for that path. Here's your big red alarm and the one big warning for you. Like we talked about before with that Chunky Punch chest and the either or. Just because something is not specifically required does not mean it isn't used in some capacity. You could see Triangle hinted in the Castle Color Bananas up here, and then Punch hinted on 5-Door Temple there. Let's just say that, for example. Let's say it's Castle Color Bananas is Triangle, 5-Door Temple is Punch. And Featherbow is on that chunky shed we talked about earlier. That works if Gorilla Gone and Pineapple are not currently available, but not locked by Triangle in any other way. Because Triangle won't be considered on the path of Tiny Phase, but Punch will. These are rare occasions, but you do still need to keep them in your mind. And the more you play the game, the more you see these ones, the more you'll be aware of these either-or potentials. But basically, if you are searching for an answer to a specific end goal like Key 8, Any path hint does not contain key 8 on the path cannot be strictly required and used for that path. You can skip it. And it's a big level up to how fast you will go. Moving on to our other remaining kinds of hints. We have 4 different other kinds. I'm going to go back here to my little picture here. Right here, this one right there, oops, right here, is a Kong hint. Kong hints are direct indicators of where a Kong is located in the game. A Kong that you don't start with. You are guaranteed to get Kong hints for specifically the 3 Kongs you do not start the seed with. And how Kong hints are read is can be found by something in a level. Now, it will not always say another Kong, but it frequently will. The combination actually looks something more like what kind of check they are on and which level they are in. So, you could see something along the lines of on a battle arena in Jungle Japes. And that could be, oh, that means that my Lanky Kong is on that battle arena in front of Funky in Jungle Japes. Awesome. But it could also say by Donkey Kong in Aztec. And now he's on a donkey check in Aztec. So that's how that information functions. Next up is our foolish hints. Unlike other games where foolish hints can often refer to, oh, here was your logical first bow in Ocarina of Time. So these other 2 bows that are locked behind the progression that came to are considered foolish. They can be put in foolish regions. DK64 Randomizer's foolish is much more powerful. It is saying exclusively that no potion, Kong, Way of the Horde or not, can be found there. You can confidently skip, always and forever, any region that is hinted as foolish. It will contain only gold bananas and blueprints, things like that. Often banana medals and fairies, though a key element here, if you need to turn in fairies to the banana fairy on the island, banana fairies will never be found in foolish regions because they're technically required. And no matter how many of them are available to you in Logic, they will always never appear in foolish areas. Scouring hints refer to potions and only potions. They are a hint as seen right here. Hideout Helm will yield you 1 potion. It means that the region of the game, it won't tell you a level, it'll tell you a region, just like the 5-door temple or Castle Color Bananas, and how many potions are in that region. Now, with our update to 5.0, which for your current runs will be on dev, but when we get to the tournament will be on main, scouring hints have become slightly more powerful. They are programmed to hint towards items with high unhinted scores if those exist. So if you are in a casino and you don't exactly know where to look, checking your scouring regions is a very good idea. Finally, I don't have a picture of this one, but slam hints is 1 hint in the game. It is guaranteed to be on one of your hint doors. And the way it works is it will tell you exactly the levels both of your slams are in. The reason why it's guaranteed in every game is because frequently, maybe not commonly, but frequently enough to matter, the 2 slams will not lock each other, and you will need exactly one of them, but not both of them, to do a blue slam check. And if that's the case, neither slam will be Way of the Horde, they won't be strictly required, and they won't be hinted as paths. Instead, you will just need to get one of them, and the playthrough will grab one of the 2 at random, essentially. Whichever one it prefers. Or finds first, I guess. Um, so to prevent scenarios where you're basically looking through the entire game with zero information for a slam, the slam hint will tell you both levels the slams are in. If both slams are in one level, they will both best be found in as listed in that level. It says something on the lines of, if you're searching for simian slams, you should be looking in this level and this level. And if it only has one level, it is just the one level listed. Moving on, micro hints. These are a very important thing to keep in mind. They're very useful and they're very powerful for the end of a game. Micro hints enable you to be able to check for necessary pads at the end of the game on the path to key 8 and identify where those moves are. The 7 different micro hintable moves in this game are Monkey Port, Gorilla Gone, and then the 5 instruments. The Monkey Port pad to get up to Helm, if you don't have Monkey Port yet, can be micro hinted if you have enough golden bananas equal to the highest non-Helm B-Locker. In Scrub Season 2, that'll be whatever your level 7 B-Locker says. If you have that many or more, if you have the ability to go into level 7, you can hit that item. Gorilla Gone's pad can be hinted once you have enough GBs to enter Helm, which is 45. And then the Helm instrument pads are hintable if you don't have the item and you stand on them. All these pads require to be stood on by a Kong to hint. So you can't hint Gorilla Gone until you have Monkey Port to get up there and key 6 and 7 to get in. You can't hint anything in Helm until you can get into Helm with Monkey Port, key 6 and 7, Gorilla Gone, and Vines. But again, if you have run out of information, they are incredibly useful. The format for micro hints is Squawks will come down. You can see him in the little image right here. There's my boy. There's the bird. There's the bird. He will tell you you would be better off looking for a kind of check in a specific level. So again, just like with Kong hints, it could say you would be better off looking with Donkey Kong in Aztec. Or it could say you'd be better off looking for a melon crate in Jungle Japes. You get a pretty narrow focus to be able to find it, but not a guarantee. So it's good to go looking for them at that point in time, and sometimes you may not need to go find other items to help you get to those items. But micro hints are very useful for if you have run out of information, or you just need one more move. It's like, I'm going to go get that and figure out where that is and go get that afterwards. So remember, this is a possibility. It will save you a lot of time. Tracker hints. Oh boy. All right. Everyone take a good look at this screen. You're going to get really, really familiar with it as you go through Scrubs. Scrub Season 2 is, I guess I'm saying proud to announce, but it's already been announced because this video is going up after our reveal stream. But proud to announce that we have an additional avenue of information and hints. In addition to this tracker having auto-tracking capabilities, so when you pick up a move, it'll tell you what level you found that move in, which is really useful. It also provides a couple of other key elements on here that will help you solve your seed. First off, if you look at the bottom down here, this is information that you're given straight off from the beginning. In order to activate your tracker, you're essentially given a spoiler log from the beginning that you get to put into this tracker, and it will tell you what Kongs you start with, what moves you start with, and most importantly, which Kongs in order and are required to shut off the Blastomatic, and thus get to key 8, and which Kongs in order need to fight K. Rool, and thus whose moves you need to beat the game. Obviously, the ones for K. Rool are also found directly on the hints that you will read over the course of the game, but normally, we have required people to check in with Snide with 0 blueprints in your thing to check that. But right from the start of the game, you will know everything you need to do. Everything you must accomplish to beat the seed. Every single item you will need to obtain, you will know. Now, you might need to find intermediary items to help you find those other items. But you will know what all your endpoints are immediately. But that is not the most interesting part. This is the most interesting part. Listed here are our 3 starting moves, but more interestingly, the 9 different levels, including Helm and DK Isles, that exist in the game. They all have a number printed next to them, which indicates a number of points that the scene you are playing, that level contains within. In our season 2 settings, Scrubs, every move, every Kong, every key, and the beam are all worth exactly 1 point. So as a result, the numbers on your screen you see here could be directly understood with some leniency towards being the number of potentially useful things contained within that level. Here are some exceptions. 1, any of our bait vials, so ammo belts, third melon, instrument upgrades, things like that, they are not considered points for this. However, homing ammo and sniper scope, things like that, those white vials, oranges, those are. 2, once a level is out of points, there is guaranteed nothing else in that level. And 3, the points here do not guarantee that these are absolutely useful. There are plenty of items in the game that you will never need to be able to complete the game. Certainly, while it is possible for a seed to logically require every single item in the game, it is more rare that it does than it doesn't. So, while this is a useful tool for telling you which levels have a lot of things in them, and what levels to go search for and still find things in, and once you see a 0 on a level, knowing a level is 100% dead, it is not a replacement for being able to read through your hints and understand what is still available. That is a key distinction. So, we have another new feature as well. So, fading hints are not new. And it can be very confusing sometimes with multiple items in the same region, possibilities of checks being a different item, being paranoid that you've gone and checked through something, but what if it's that last 5-door temple you haven't seen yet? What if you're still missing the item you need? Well, fading hints allow you to know once a hint has been resolved. And by resolved, we mean you have picked up the item the hint is referring to. So, in that picture you see over here on the right, the reason why diving here is faded, but coconut here has not, is because it's not whether you have picked up diving or coconut. In this case, you actually started in the seed with diving and coconut. What it's saying is, I have picked up key 5, and yet I have not picked up key 4. So the path on which I have gone is resolved. But if you get a hint that says something on the path to Castle CBs, this hint right here, it will dim once you find the item it is specifically referring to. So if you pick up Coconut Gun on a Castle CB thing, and this doesn't dim, it's not referring to Coconut Gun. There's a different Castle CB item it's referring to. But checking your hints to see if something dimmed a bunch is very difficult, and we figured it would be very useful if you knew when something was resolved. So, introducing to you Hint Indicator. If you have already read and received a hint and then find the item that that hint is referring to, when the game fades that hint, without needing to see the hint screen itself, you will be immediately rewarded with a check mark in the bottom right-hand corner of your HUD, telling you that this is an item that corresponds to a hint you have, allowing you to then go and confirm that this is an important item and which hint that item refers to. If you find a hint after you find your item, that hint will still fade, but you will not receive a check mark. So, basically, if you pick up Coconut Gun and then later on you get told, hey, something in the castle surroundings is on the path to key 7 and 8, and it is Coconut Gun. When you open your hint menu again, it will be a faded hint because you have the correct item, but you won't receive a check mark telling you that it has been faded because the programming for that just isn't there. But this is a really useful way for you to be able to understand which items actually apply, especially in a game where overlaps can happen quite a lot. Scrub Season 2 is a SLO setting string. That means that we are playing in standard level order. Standard level order is a setting where the game attempts to smooth your game experience out by making levels encountered in roughly the level order, though it's definitely not going to stop you from having to go back and forth between levels. It does mean that, in general, actually guaranteed, your B lockers will have strictly increasing banana levels as they go up from level 1 to level 7. It also comes with additional protections towards Kongs, keys, and training moves that are specifically allowed and done as in a manner of logic that you have to be able to logically obtain the item within the threshold of access that it is protected within. So, let's talk about those protections. For Kongs, your Kongs are guaranteed to all appear within the first 5 levels, and you must have at least a level's number of Kongs before entering the next level. So, before entering level 4, you have to have 3 Kongs logically. Why are we wording it like that as opposed to just saying, by the end of level 3, you must have 3 Kongs. By the end of level 4, you must have 4 Kongs. Well, because Kongs can show up, rarely, but can show up in the lobby of the next level. It's not protecting you against the access to that level's lobby. It is saying before you enter the next B locker, you must have at least that many Kongs. So level 3 and lobby 4, 3 Kongs. Level 4 and lobby 5, 4 Kongs. Level 5 and lobby 6, all Kongs. And sometimes that means that you will just get all 3 of your missing Kongs in your first level, sphere 0, and boom, you're done. It's not saying that they're going to be evenly spread like that, but it is guaranteed at minimum that they must be obtained all before that point. And with moves that are logically accessible before that point. Keys in SLO are guaranteed to be found in a level order, so in order to obtain key 2, it must exist in either one of your first 2 levels, level 1 or 3, because you start with level 1 and key 1 provides you level 3. Key 4 must be available in your first 4 levels since it unlocks level 5. Even if you find key 5 before you find key 2 or key 4, going and searching level 6 and 7, well, first off, I mean, they have higher B-locker numbers, but even if you could break into them somehow as well, that wouldn't help you find those keys because they are guaranteed to, like, make you find them in level order, essentially. And then finally, our training moves in SLO refer specifically to barrels, vines, and diving, not oranges. Sorry to orange lovers. These are restricted to appear within the first 3 levels of the game. So the first 3 lobbies and the first 3 levels. Logically accessible, these will always be there. Regardless of how much you have to hop back and forth, whatever items you have, logically being able to be obtained, by the end of those 3 levels, you will be able to find these 3 moves. So if you're still missing diving and you're trying to go on to level like 5 because you found key 4, just remember that anything you find in level 5 cannot be used to help you find diving in a logical sense. All right. Let's put that all together a little bit here. DK64 has a ton of information to digest. And all of it is going to help you solve your seeds with a really good degree of accuracy. So I have some tips to talk to you about progressing in your next seed. First off, and most importantly, write down everything you see. I cannot stress this enough. If you see a potion in a shop, write it down. If you see a potion in a cage, write it down. If you see a Kong hanging out, if you see a thing on a dirt, whatever you do, write it down. The number of times even top runners forget that they have seen something somewhere and go around for an hour looking for what has actually been under their noses and accessible easily the entire time is ludicrous. It will help save your mental energy, your bandwidth. You need that to be able to piece together your hints. Write it down. On that note, keep a clean track of your hints. Write down every hint you get. You can use your tracker to get your hints. You can write them down on a notepad like I do. You can write them down physically on a piece of paper for all I care. Whatever works for you, works for you. But this is the key part. Keep a clean track of them, and don't be afraid to remove hints that don't help you anymore. If you got a hint that said, hey, where is it? Here it is. Cave's Helm Lobby is on the path to Key 3. And then you shot your coconut gun at the cage in Castle Lobby that has that kasplat, and it gave you Key 3. That hint's not useful anymore. You have Key 3. It just talked about Key 3. Erase that stuff, man. Erase it. It's not useful. It's just taking up space in your thing. You really want to be able to see all of your hints at once. Just get it out of there. Don't worry about it. Keep moving while you're thinking. Do a lot of your thinking and hint writing inside shops and inside cutscenes. Go collect golden bananas. Well, if you're not sure what to do next, just keep collecting what's in front of you and thinking about it. And then don't be afraid to be like, I have an answer, and quit it as something and go, you know? You don't have to be optimal routing, right? What you need to do is pick up enough golden bananas to finish the seed, which is 45 to get into Helm and 50 to get past the Helm door at the back. But beyond that, like, you don't need to be in a level if you don't think it's the right level. You can just go immediately afterwards. But while you are thinking, keep moving. You will lose more time standing still and being confused. Trust me, if you can think and move, it's very useful. At the beginnings of your seeds, so I like to subscribe to what I call a funnel theory. If you imagine kind of an inverted triangle, at the beginning of your seed, you want to do every available check, because the seed is still wanting to provide you with moves that are going to be useful to you. Like, how do I put this? It needs to give you the tools to be able to unlock its puzzle to begin with. And then once you start to get more tools, i.e. moves, and information, i.e. hints, you can begin to narrow your focus, check less things. Still check enough things to get enough easy GPs, and check in areas that you're suspicious of but not quite sure of. But, you know, check a little bit less. Do less slow things, unless you're explicitly told to do them. Check all your hinted regions, but maybe don't check that other really slow check. Don't check that boss. Don't do that other medal, right? And then at the end of your seed, when you have most of your things and you're only looking for 1 or 2 items remaining, don't do any checks unless you know for a fact with, you know, negative information and other hints that it's a good check to be checking. Sometimes at the end of a seed, you will just know where everything is, right? But sometimes you'll be missing one thing that will unlock everything else for you, and you need to really think about where that one thing can be and do the fewest checks possible to find that thing. The less wrong checks you do, the more time you will save. So again, moving while you're thinking about what checks are available in that scenario is important, and doing less and less checks as the game goes on, very important. And this is a really key one. Keep track of what checks you have done, of what moves and hints you have already used and solved, and which ones still need solving. Write down your stuff, keep a note of that, and like mark off next to your hints, like, oh, I found coconut gun for this hint, so this hint is answered. Now, have I used coconut gun for everything on this hint? Like, write that out. Type your notes out. Like, anything that helps you note that you have done something or have not done something is really important, because sometimes at the end of a seed, you might go, well, all my hints are answered, but truthfully, one of your hints still says, oh, I haven't used this grape shooter to get to key 8 yet. Grape shooter is locking something if I only just realized that was the case. So keeping track of what you have done, what you haven't done, and what moves have already answered something is very, 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 very useful. Now, let's talk about casinos. We sort of touched on it there in terms of keeping moving, and not every check is going to have an answer. But in this game, sometimes you will not be able to be 100% certain on something. Sometimes you'll be chasing one move for checks that might give you another move for checks. And like you'll get the wrong answer a couple times before finding the right answer eventually. And sometimes you'll have no information and no leads and just have to do every check that is possible within negative information. Negative information will frequently look like, okay, Peanuts, Rocket Barrel, Baboon Balloon, and Baboon Blast can't be on the path of this thing because of the path hints I have. But every other move is technically possible. So we're going to do every check that isn't excluded by those 4 moves, right? And that just means you have to check everything there. So if you find yourself in that casino, the best thing you can do is keep doing checks while you think about it, like we talked about. Use your negative information to eliminate as many moves as possible. Use the point counts on your tracker to eliminate as many levels as possible. And use your scouring and foolish hints to eliminate regions where possible. Or choose areas that are good to search first. If you have a scouring hint that still has a potion that's available, do that one first. If you have areas that you have already found all the potions in, which is why you want to, write down what you've already done, a scouring hint becomes a foolish hint at the end of a game if you've already found all the potions in it, right? Now, to be clear, this is really important. Potions are not keys, so scouring hints could still hold a key inside them. But if you're looking for stuff for just key 8, it is only potions, so you can eliminate that. So that kind of thinking through and logical accessing is really important to being able to level up your game and improve itself. And most of all, keep a cool head and clear your hinted regions. Sometimes regions have multiple hints applying to them, and it is important. And actually, in these settings, go back and check if the hints you have at the end of a game, if they faded or not. You might have missed one. It's like, oh no, this hint I thought applied to this didn't fade because I got the item first and it was something else. Oh no, I need to go look in this area. That's important too. So read your hints, write down what you've done, keep a cool head, keep moving, keep thinking, keep playing. We're going to talk about some additional resources. Our DK64 Randomizer Wiki is a fantastic, fantastic home for setup help, getting set up with emulators and stuff, for hint help. The All About Hints page contains a lot of what I've talked about here today in even greater detail, made by the people who wrote this code. All kinds of different regions listed and things like that. All that can be found there on the wiki. It's incredibly useful. I encourage you to go look at that. The community of this game is a fantastic resource for finding players who can help you understand things. My name is Verdant Ash. If you ping me in either of the gameplay help or the DK64 Randomizer general channel, I promise you, if I'm not at work, I will come and help you. I'm happy to talk through logic with you. More than happy. But there's plenty of other people who are also willing to do that as well. You can always find help, and that's a great way to be able to learn. And most importantly of all, you will never improve if you don't practice. The more seeds you play and practice and make mistakes from it, the better you will get. And especially, I plan on hosting a ton of races of these settings. It is super important that you race in those races, see how you do compared to everyone else, and then watch those top runners who and how they play and what choices they make and why they made choices that you didn't make and what actions they took to help them speed themselves up. All super, 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 super important. So that is the end of our video. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, please feel free to leave questions in the comments here, or again, ping me. I'm Verdant Ash, VERDANT ASH. You can ping me and there. I will answer anything about hints you need to know. I'm sure everyone else will be happy to help as well. I want to give some thanks to our DK64 mod team, Blam, LaRock, Tudos, Greenbean, everyone who puts even a little bit of effort into making this possible. And our Scrubs Season 2 dev team, Trenter, Flash, Fruipy, Jason, everyone who has made this possible. It's fantastic to see so many new faces coming in and trying to learn this game that I genuinely, genuinely adore. Every single player who takes the time to help others learn this game, I know for a fact there's going to be a whole bunch of people out there who are incredibly interested in being able to help out other people, and you're going to be able to see them there in those channels I talked about. Thank you, thank you, thank you for making this community grow. And you, yes, you watching this video right now, thank you for taking the time to watch this. Thank you for being interested in our community. And thank you so much for the effort to understand this. Again, if you have any questions, I want to be able to help you. Feel free to go back through these videos, go back through our hint pages, and I hope you have a great time playing Scrub Season 2, and we will see you on the DK Isles. Goodbye, everyone. Ciao. See you later. And remember, morning.